Welcome, everyone. I'm Stephen Goldberg of Optimus Performance, bringing you practical tips and ideas on leadership, team development, and employee performance in the workplace. And as you can see, I have a special guest with me, Andy McDowell, who has a business called Generate Your Value. And I love that name for a business. And I've been talking a lot about value in my recent videos when it comes to searching for your ideal job or hiring talent. We're all looking for what value somebody can bring. But you talk about it a lot when it comes to entrepreneurship, since you work with entrepreneurs. So maybe, Andy, introduce yourself, give a little bit about your background, how you got to be doing what you're doing today. Then we'll dive into some of the topics, how you help your clients.
Sure. So as you said, my name is Andy McDowell. I have a life leadership and small business coaching business in the Atlanta, Georgia area in the United States. The way I like to introduce myself is I'm an entrepreneur, and I've traveled through 3 different types of entrepreneurship. I first worked for an entrepreneur, or actually a set of entrepreneurs, in a small 17-person firm that then got bought by a very giant corporation called Boeing, the largest exporter dollar-wise in the United States. And I was asked to build a consulting practice or business from scratch. So I became an entrepreneur within a large corporation, building a business to help governments around the world bring GPS into their flight and ground operations. You know, from a process and air traffic control standpoint, Boeing wanted to increase the market size, total market size of airplanes in the world, but you got to have an ATC system that can handle more airplanes in the air without a reduction in safety. So we were a strategic business, not a big money maker, but a strategic business that would enable building much higher revenues in other parts of the company. I did that for a little over 22 years, rose to a low-level executive position when the 737 MAX crisis came along, and Boeing laid off thousands of employees, and I was one of those. One of my favorite parts of my job within Boeing was mentoring my own team members as well as other people within the organization. And you know, my original plan was to do 30 years at Boeing and be a coach part-time after a 30-year career at Boeing, but I got cut short at 22, so I decided to go into it full-time, and now I'm an entrepreneur myself, standing on my own 2 feet, trying to help other entrepreneurs, whether they're thinking about it or getting started or have been doing it for a while, but they want higher levels of revenue or success.
Let me ask you,
in their business.
Yeah, so when you talk about entrepreneurs, what's the typical size of company? You know, let's say number of employees. I always like to use that as a benchmark. What size do you typically work with? What's your sweet spot?
Where I see the most need is the small businesses under 20 people, you know, making, I don't know, 8-10 million or less in annual revenue is where the most need is.
And why do you find that is? Why do you find that is
because it's a lot of people that don't have formal business education. They're sort of running their business through intuition or asking a few questions of other people. You know, I got to put food on the table and a roof over my head, so I'm going to go enter a business with a sort of a Hail Mary type plan. Just go by the seat of my pants, so to speak, trying to grow their business, and they don't have the knowledge or the access to the strategic tools or business tools that somebody that has a formal education in or some kind of background or was in the corporate world and becoming an entrepreneur might have coming into it.
But you know, I just interrupt you for a second because I've worked a lot with that size type of companies, and I've actually had a few that have had master's degrees in MBAs, and even one had a PhD. And, what I found is that learning something in a classroom years ago and then actually trying to run your own business, you recall very little because it's all theory. And what I found for myself was the actual best education and training I had was things that were relative to what I was experiencing, what I was doing. So any leadership training that I had as a leader in a company that I was involved with had so much impact compared to, trying to recall what I had learned through, studying. And I think that's why coaching is so popular now, because it helps us to apply the things that we learned but haven't been applying. And, a good coach will help us to recall those things and those best practices. It's often what we learn in the textbooks, right? So sorry to interrupt you, but I thought that was an interesting one because
no worries.
In the ongoing learning type of, when you work with a coach, you're learning from that coach in some way, right?
Well, just like, a student in college or high school, or whatever, might have great book smarts, and then it comes time to take the test and they, whether it's a pressure thing or retention of knowledge or whatever, they don't do so well on the test. You run into the same thing out in the business world. Just like you said, people with masters and PhDs have the proven book smarts, but when it comes to using intuition and sensing what's going on in the marketplace or with their customers or whatever, it sort of goes over the head, and or don't have the leadership skills in particular to be able to execute properly on their business. It happens. The two don't automatically come together, right?
So if we go back to this type of business, the size of business, small business entrepreneurs, what typical problem or challenge are they facing that you go in to help them with? What's like that, number one challenge you would be able to identify or express?
If they're a solopreneur, it's just they themselves.
Well, let's say with a team, because, somebody with 20 employees, go back to that. Yeah.
Yeah. With a team, a lot of it is leadership and the dynamics of working with and leading other human beings that come to the table with their own filter sets, their own backgrounds and experiences, hurts, pains, whatever, different motivations. Some people are motivated by money, some are by their hobbies. I'm just here to get a paycheck so I can go do my favorite hobbies. That's what brings joy and happiness to myself.
Right.
And are you digging into those when you have your one-on-one conversations to understand who the person is across the table from you that you're really dealing with, and how you get them engaged? Are you answering the proper questions that they have? You come out with a strategy or a direction and they're always asking inside their head, why are we doing this? Are you answering the question to the why, where they can start getting buy-in as to why you're asking them to do this, and how does it help the business, and how does it help me personally? So what's my role in it?
Yeah, let's just explore that a minute. This challenge, what are we seeing, or what are you seeing happening as a result of this challenge of now, growing your small business, you're bringing on more people, and you're having difficulty with the management or leading of people. So what are we seeing as symptoms from this? What are the pains that the business owner is experiencing?
Well, the biggest of which is turnover. I mean, number one reason why people leave a company is because of the relationship with the boss.
Okay.
Right. So if they feel like they're not being heard, or, there's a typical thing. So I'm not getting paid enough for those type of things. But the reality is most of the reasons are what I deem emotional. Inside, right? Do I feel respected? Do I feel like I'm heard? Is the culture or the relationship with my boss emotionally safe that I can speak my mind in a respectful way and be heard and have a conversation with it? Do I understand my role within the business and what value I'm bringing to the organization that is contributing to the success of the organization? Or are all those things or an environment or a culture that you as a leader are bringing to the table or creating that makes them want to get out of bed in the morning and come work for you? Do you have that emotional intelligence to do that?
So if we go into the head of the entrepreneur, let's say your typical client, what do they see as the problem that they're going through? How do they coin it? Where do they put the blame? If we could, say
well, it's usually phrases like, I can't find good people, they don't stay, or I'm trying to get them to do these things and they won't listen. They do something different.
Okay.
Or they just don't seem to be motivated. It's hard for me to get what I feel like is a good 8 hours or whatever out of them in a day is how they typically come.
So on one hand, you have the business owner seeing the problem as not able to find the right people, or
it's about
people
them.
aren't.
It's about them.
Yeah,
it's not about you.
them.
It's about them.
And the employees are saying, I don't feel valued. I don't feel like I'm contributing. I'm not being heard. So what solution, and your company is Generate Your Value, maybe you could tie that in the name of the company, and you mentioned the word value a number of times. So what is the solution that you bring to this type of situation?
Well, I'm a big fan of servant leadership type style and leadership. So it's about a mindset. It's about as a leader being introspective to understand what you're bringing to the table in terms of the situation and your mindset and your emotional intelligence, and showing a little bit of empathy and building up a trust with the person that you're talking to on the other side. That doesn't mean you have to cave in your opinion or anything, but it's got to be enough that it shows some respect and that you're listening, that you're confirming that you understand their viewpoint in this, and if at all possible, finding the win-win in the conversation. And that's just in that conversation. What about conversation in with the rest of the team? As you're going through your day-to-day activities, are you bringing the same kind of mindset and so forth as you talk to a multitude of people in an environment? When you do that, you're delivering value or at least perceived value on the part of your team members to the situation, as opposed to if it's all finger pointing and they're like, you're not bringing any value whatsoever. We're not moving in this conversation. You're not listening to me. You're not respecting me. At least that's the way I feel when I'm in conversation with you, right?
Yeah, so, I get it. Now, here's a bit of a challenge for you. A typical entrepreneur is the type of person, not always, but we see this a lot, that has a lot of drive, has a lot of good ideas, very smart, not afraid to take control, very directive. And now but he's experiencing these problems with his team. Team members are becoming less engaged. They don't want to work for this guy anymore. They find other opportunities. So how do you help them switch from what is their, I guess, strength that actually got them into being an entrepreneur, that drive, that directiveness, and, how do you even convince them and then get them to, you're talking a transformation from that style, from that inborn style, it's like in them, to somebody that's going to now start showing empathy and listening, and they may get it intellectually, but, and, I face the same challenge. That's why I'm asking you the question. I'm challenging you. How do you make that shift? And it's not only just an entrepreneur, it's also directors, executives, because the owner will hire people like him that have those same qualities because they're going to push through to get results, right? So how do you get that shift, that transformation?
Yeah, so there's a phrase out there, right? Doctor, know thyself or heal thyself. So it's being introspective enough and agreeing that, I'm this way. And then making a decision or a choice as to, well, do you want to stay that way, or do you want to build some leadership muscles, emotional muscles, or whatever that allows you to step outside of that, even for a period of time in the day, to get better results? Or are you saying, no, I'm okay the way I am. I know that about myself, but I'm okay and I don't want to change. Okay, then maybe you need to structure the business different, knowing it's a weakness, and hire somebody that has those strengths, that's going to be dealing with most of the team. And then the two of you can get behind closed doors and have conversations and agreement on goals or things you want to achieve, and then give this person the full authority to go deal with the team.
So I guess that's
with those strengths to
yeah.
get what you need out of it, right? So it's first and foremost is it's an acknowledgement that you're that way, and then making a choice of, well, I want to strengthen some muscles and be able to change with the situation, right? I could be this way in this situation, but then I need to move over here and be this way in another situation in the business and have that flexibility. Or do you just want to be rigid and then you need to go hire somebody else to take care of those things for you, knowing you don't have any strengths in it and you don't want to change? That's a choice.
So I guess as a strategic person, having that approach, you're able to help them to look at those options by understanding where their own leadership style is or could be a weakness in terms of dealing with people, and make a decision on either I'm going to change because it's causing me pain, it's causing me problems. Now I know what the cause of the problem is, or I'm going to find somebody who could be that interface, which could be a solution too.
Yeah, I once had a senior VP in Boeing, came from the FAA, and a great reputation out in industry, was a good intellectual thinker about the business, had great political skills. But when it came to running the nuts and bolts of the business, was not his strength. And being on his team and talking to my teammates, I could tell you we were frustrated left and right. And he had a position underneath him that we were hoping he would fill with somebody that had strengths in leading a business, nuts and bolts, day-to-day operations, that could take his direction and then go out and be the main interface of the team and get things done. But he didn't recognize that about himself. He didn't fill it with somebody with those type skills, and we just floundered.
Okay. So once you start working with a client and, they recognize they have this shortcoming, or they need to perhaps modify or transform their approach with their team, what are the steps? Can you kind of give us in a nutshell what the steps are to have them make that shift or transformation?
Well, first of all, is recognizing and accepting that about yourself. And then it's a choice about what direction they want to go. If they want to strengthen their muscles, then we talk about where they might have opportunities in their day with their team to try different things. What might that look like? Does it mean more listening? Does it mean more you gotta muzzle yourself and provide some white space or opportunity for people to talk in your meeting? Why, when other people start talking, do you just shift your brain off, or it's still going with your own ideas and you're not truly listening? What does it look like? And then we can have some conversations about, being present in the moment and saying, okay, I'm in that situation. I'm in that trigger, if you will. And now I need to just be quiet, let other people speak, and actually listen to what they have to say. Now, ultimately, you're the business owner. You still get to make the final choice. You're not saying, hey, you get to make the choice, but you're going to go a lot further with your team by the fact they feel like they were heard.
So taking A more
They're
collaborative or
a more
participative
collaborative approach, respecting their opinions, thanking them for their opinions, make them feel like they're part of the team and so forth. And you can do very small little things in the day-to-day that can make a huge impact relative to that. So we would have conversations along those lines and have them go out and try it for a week or two and come back and go, okay, how'd you do? How did that feel to you? Did it feel better? Did you get better reactions out of your team? What did that look like to you? And then we just tweak it as we go along. But
so is this what you mean?
Sometimes it's just holding the mirror up and going, this is what you're actually doing, how people are feeling. They're like, really? I had no idea. So you put that mirror up, right? Sometimes you can have tools. I know at Boeing we had a tool called a 360 review where HR would go do anonymous conversations with people that were your peers, your direct boss, and your direct reports.
I use that as well. Yeah.
Yeah, and get terrific anonymous feedback. The things you were like, wow, I didn't realize I was doing that. You know, kinds of things.
Yeah.
You got to have an open mind. If you just see it as just straight criticism and you just shut yourself off, then you're not going to go anywhere. But if you
360s are great tools. If, of course, you act on them, it's one thing to ask for people's input. And if they see you actually making an effort, they really respect that and are happy they give their input. If they don't see any change, then they start doubting, well, again, it's like, well, where's my value? Nobody's listening. So I guess when you talk about generate your value, you're talking about, from what I understand, like a leader, a business owner, what value are you bringing to your team, to your business, not just from, the driving force of the business, but actually bringing that leadership, bringing those qualities of leadership to play to help everybody perform the way you want them to perform, but doing it in a way that they feel valued as well, right? That's
you want the best out of your people. You want them bringing their full potential to the table, whether it be emotional skills, physical skills, technical skills, intellectual skills. You want them to bring it all to the table, not only from the deliverance of it, but they want to deliver it. They want the business to succeed. They want to be part of the team. And your ability as a leader is, are you bringing what's valued? Are you bringing the value of what your team members would like to see? Gets them out of bed in the morning, wants to come work with you. Are you doing that or not?
Right.
I even dive into their life. Are you doing that in every aspect of your life? Are you doing it with your friends? Are you doing it with your spouse? Are you doing that with your kids? What's the mindset? Where are you with these things? Maybe you're really good at home and as a parent, but when it comes to being a boss in a career, you've got some kind of hurts or pains or triggers that get involved that
usually the style translates into all areas of life. It's because it's driven by traits like your type, your personality drives a lot of your ability to be either a thinker, a feeler, or an instinctive type, and drives the behaviors that people see. So what is so I guess really it's about learning about yourself, creating that awareness, and then looking at these small things, which for others may be big things, but these small steps you can take that will start shifting your approach with people and their perception of you. And this could bring great value. What is one valuable free action? I ask this to all my guests. What is one valuable free action that the audience can implement that will help them solve this type of problem of an entrepreneur who's,
So my philosophy in working with entrepreneurs, I'm a believer that there's a ton of overlap between business and life. And so I like to bring to bear tools that maybe an entrepreneur hasn't been exposed to, particularly business strategic tools. So, as a free, simple tool for somebody to use to just get awareness of where they think they are, to be introspective, is there's a business strategic tool that's been used for years called a SWOT analysis.
Right.
Strength, weakness, opportunity, threat. And what I do with clients is take the opportunity threat and change it to love, fear. So where are your strengths? Much of what we talked about in the last 30 minutes or so about strengths and weaknesses. What do you feel like they are for you? In the business world, we use opportunities. In real life, we use love. So where are your passions? Where are your opportunities? Where you have joy or things that bring joy and happiness to your life that you could use in a business so that they're aligned and helps you to get out of bed in the morning, helps you with your grit to get through the really tough times, particularly in the beginning and the bumps in the road. And then instead of threats, we say fear. Threats are technologies, businesses, industries that could come in and cause havoc in your business, for lack of better words. And fear is typically in human beings' life is where things are that stop you from taking a love or opportunity, or self-sabotaging, or don't even get you started. You're afraid to take a risk. Yeah, I would really love to open this business, and so I have a passion for it, but risk is just too much. I know I have too much fear of failure, not going to even try, and so forth. Okay, well, that's a choice, but you need to know that's what's driving your decisions here, as opposed to taking a different approach to accept or embrace the fear and say, yeah, I know the fear is there, but I'm trying to make the fear my friend, so to speak, and we're going to go down this journey of starting a business and see where we can go with this.
Kind of like doing a personal SWOT analysis.
Yeah, and helping to develop a life strategy instead of a business strategy is, where's my starting point? Where am I at? Let's just take an inventory, if you will, of where we're at with these 4 key things. And
yeah, I really like that. The SWOT: strength, weakness, love, what motivates you, and what are you afraid of?
What are you afraid of that's inhibiting you from going after things or living the life you want for yourself, where you think true joy, happiness, and success is going to show up.
And what I find too is that the fears cause us to overuse our strengths, and then it makes the matters worse. So if you understand that fear and you know how it affects you in terms of, let's say, somebody who's very controlling and they're afraid of things not getting done well, so they become even more overbearing. They use that strength of controlling.
Yeah, well, that's when ego starts coming in.
Yeah, exactly.
Triggers and all kinds of things that.
But it's like a gut reaction, right? We want to protect whatever it is that's going on, ourselves or the situation, so we take control if that's the strength of the person. So that's something that everybody listening can do is do kind of like you said, a personal inventory. What are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? Instead of opportunities, look at your love. What do you love doing? What motivates you that will drive you? And then what you said was your fears. What puts me into a fear state? And that could be anything. Like I said, things not going the way you want them to go. It could be just your ego, fearing that you're going to look bad in the eyes of others. That affects a lot of people a lot too, and they overcompensate for that in some way, with vanity maybe.
Yeah, so I use that tool as a starting point. Matter of fact, I'm going to be doing it with a new client this Friday. That can then lead to either, depending on what they want to work on, either a leadership plan. How am I going to change my leadership style and so forth, knowing this is my starting point from this inventory, if you will. or a life plan.
Right.
But,
Sure.
this is my starting point in my life, and here's a plan to, I can start executing against to get my life to the place that I want it to be.
Very good. Yeah, you could apply it to both for sure. So, is there a valuable free resource that you could provide people either on your website? I know you do have a podcast going actively. Is there something that I could put a link to that people can go to? Obviously, I'll put a link to the podcast in your website. Is there anything on your website that any tool or anything?
There's not really a tool per se. Obviously, it describes all my services, and you can
Right.
my contact info and those type things. But the free resource I have out there at the moment, I am in the midst of writing a book that will eventually come out. That won't be free, but is the podcast. I'm in season 2. I've been going since August of 2020. I do it with a co-host who's a business owner, so I have this sort of coaching business owner dynamic in the conversation. We release episodes every Tuesday. It's available. It's my company name, Generate Your Value, and it's available on all the major.
Well, I see you have it linked
platforms
from your website. Yeah, I'll put a link directly to that in the show notes and description of this video. Will be on YouTube and on my podcast. So, final question: what's the one question that I should have asked you that would give great value to your audience or to our audience right now?
Good question. Probably what's the number one item or top 2 items that an entrepreneur needs to possess in order to be successful? And my answer to that is mindset and grit. Resilience, a mindset of growth. And I don't have all the answers, but if I don't have the answers, I'm going to go get help and build a village around me, or find an expert or like a coach to go get the answers. What's important is the results, not the fact that I did it all myself. And second is the resilience to get through the bumps and the valleys, so to speak, on your journey, because it is a journey of being an entrepreneur and a business owner. So if you can think of it as a journey, and
I equate it to mountain climbing. When you're going to go climb a mountain, do a hike, there's going to be obstacles. So you dress appropriately and you expect certain obstacles along the way. Maybe you don't anticipate them all, but at least you're ready that there are going to be some, and you better be equipped to handle them and get over them. Well, that was great. Thank you so much, Andy, for joining me today, and hope we can do this again. For those listening, I'm going to put a link, as I mentioned, to Andy's website, his podcast, in the show notes description of this video. If you haven't subscribed already, please do so now. Turn on notifications. I'm going to be doing more of these guest expert interview series, I call them. Thank you all for listening, and we'll talk again soon.